The 75mm focal length lives in the space between 50 and 85, and that space changes everything. It's not as forgiving as wider lenses and not as dramatic as longer ones. Instead, it demands precision, it isolates without losing story, it forces you to frame with intention. When I first picked up a camera, I thought composition was about rules and chasing gear. But photography isn't about trends, it's about learning your tools and discovering how each lens teaches you to see differently. And 75mm, it taught me restraint, clarity, and connection. The 50mm holds the perfect balance between wide and long. It sits in the middle of some of the most popular focal lengths, combining the best of both worlds. As I've said before, it's like looking outside of a window while standing in a quiet room. But what if that window feels just a little too far? What if that room isn't as quiet as you would like it to be? The 85mm might seem like the right answer, but sometimes it turns you into a spectator, watching rather than participating. So is there a middle ground? I believe yes. A simple step. The 75mm. I discovered it almost by accident, shooting with a 50mm on a crop sensor, which gave me that 75mm equivalent. And I fell in love with the Fuji 50mm, yes, but more importantly, with what this focal length unlocked for me. Especially on those tough days when you don't want to get too close, but you are still chasing that connection, still searching for that layered street photography magic. That's when the 75mm shines. With 75mm, your subject is the door and the story is the key. With longer focal lengths, we often aim for a fixed frame. Whether it's a portrait or a street shot, we go for that headshot type of image, forgetting the key. We stay away from our subjects, pulling all our focus on them, the door. But a door without a key will never open, and the beauty and mystery behind it will remain hidden. The 75mm is the tool that can bring the key and the door together. A focal length that can isolate the beauty of a subject while still including its story. Both big, both imposing, and yet both merging into a rich composition. One of the first lessons I've learned with this focal length is to embrace chaos, and within it, to isolate subjects and their stories. To go close, but never forget to think wide. To recognize details that matter and build layers in contrast to my preconceptions. Like with the 50mm, when I frame my shots, I ask myself, what is my subject? What story do I want to tell? Once I know, I move closer. I focus on my subjects, but I also look for foreground and background elements that amplify the characters. With this lens, I used to shoot wide open to get that blurry background, but nowadays I stop down to 5.6 or f8 and I'm mindful of every detail I choose to include in my frame. If it's in the composition, it must be there for a reason. I've learned not to hide stories in the blur of wide apertures, but to let them live in the photo. I no longer rely on highlights and shadows as stepping stones, although I still embrace them when they appear. Instead, I compose stories with whatever light and mood is present, amplifying textures and engaging every sense of the viewer. If you're enjoying the video so far, hit the like button, the new hype button, and consider subscribing with a bell. Here is an exercise that changed how I shoot with a 75mm. Treat it like a 35. In fact, shoot with a 35mm for a while and then jump back to the 75mm. Move with it as you would with a wider focal length. Step closer, shift your angle a bit. Search for elements and layers the same way you would if you were shooting wide. Of course, the results won't look the same. They would look different, but that's the point. With a 75mm, the frame subtracts. Elements you try to include in full might only appear in fragments. The edge of a sign, the corner of a building, the shadow or the blur of a passerby. And those fragments carry weight, they create curiosity. It's in those missing details that the magic happens. The viewer begins to wonder what's beyond the frame, what's hidden, what does it mean? The absence becomes presence. and suddenly your composition isn't just showing, it's suggesting, inviting the imagination to complete the story. The 75mm doesn't offer a balanced frame, it leans towards the narrow side. But that is its real strength. It simplifies. It helps strip away the noise, allowing you to focus on 1, 2, or maybe 3 elements, allowing each one to play its part in the frame. To enhance composition, I use street signs, poles, even other people to emphasize my subject. I use reflections not just as decorations, but because reflections, like mirrors in a small room, add space in an already tight frame. And sometimes I fill the entire frame with a single subject, letting it dominate, glorifying it. But no matter how complex or simple the composition is, I never forget. It's the details, the emotions, the human connection that carries the image forward. Having the door and the key is only one part of the story. The other part is aligning them. Finding the right vantage point, the right angle, so the door and the key can work in unison and the door can open. That's why I often lower my camera, shoot from the hip. Not quickly, but slowly, taking my time to frame while keeping the lower vantage point. From there, people don't just look big in the frame, they look glorious, empowered, like the protagonists of their own moment. The more I used this lens, the more it became a teacher of restraint. The 75mm didn't just show me the world, it showed me how much I had overlooked in the spaces between. Each frame felt like a lesson in subtraction, in choosing what to leave out so what remains could speak louder. This focal length is often ignored, but that's part of its beauty. It doesn't flatter you with ease, and it doesn't overwhelm you with drama. It asks for precision, for intention, and for an unwavering sense of inclusion. And in return, it gives you photographs filled with presence, images that suggest more than they show. The 75mm is not a shortcut. It's a discipline. Whether you are picking it up for the first time or rediscovering it after years of shooting, it will push you, upset you, and challenge you. But if you stay true to it, if you resist falling back into the control of the 50 or the drama of the 85, and you embrace it for what it is, a space in between, maybe there you will find your own way of seeing. Have you ever tried the 75mm? What did you discover? Share your experiences, your tips and your wins down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, the hype button, and consider subscribing with the bell. And if you would like to support the channel further, become a member or check some of the other links down in the description. And to continue your journey into focal lengths, check right here how I mastered the 50mm focal length. That was all for today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, I will see you on the streets. Bye bye.